there, this is episode 94 of the first 10 minutes. I'm Tony Parmenter.
I am Steve Helliwell.
And I am Aaron Williams.
And this is a video games podcast where we play the first 10 minutes of a video game. Then we sit down here to discuss how well that game communicates itself to the player, both in terms of what the game is about and how to play the game. And in response to our latest listener poll, which you can find at the first 10 minutes on Twitter, you, the listeners, voted for us to play Observer. Steve, you played Observer. Over to you.
I did. All right, so some data. Observer, stylized as greater than Observer _ is a cyberpunk horror video game developed by Bloober Team and published by Aspyr for release on Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, and was released on the 15th of August 2017. Thanks, Wikipedia. Wikipedia also notes that it is made in Unreal Engine 4 and that it is in the genre of survival horror and features the modes of single player.
Cool. I think if I'm not mistaken, this is the team that made Layers of Fear, right?
I'll have to double check if it's the same team, but they are both Aspyr. You can double check that if you like. You get report back. But I believe you're correct. The Steam description says, what would you do if your fears were hacked? Greater than Observer _ is a cyberpunk horror game from Bloober Team, the creators of Layers of Fear. Play as an observer.
We solved the mystery.
We did.
We did it. We solved the Bloober puzzle.
Play as an observer, the new front line of neural police, as you hack into jagged minds of the insane. Fair enough. It is in the genre of cyberpunk horror, psychological horror, atmospheric adventure, violent gore, indie sci-fi, walking simulator, futuristic, first-person, story-rich, single-player, dystopian survival.
Missing that great soundtrack, as always.
Doesn't have a great soundtrack, apparently. I think the soundtrack's pretty good. I
like the soundtrack.
For those of you wondering, you can watch the slightly more than 10 minutes of footage on YouTube. It'll be linked in the description below. I've included inside that 10 minutes the intro text that happens before the main menu, as it does some basic world setup that may be of interest to you. So right off the bat, hey, is that Rutger Hauer? Yes, it is. It is Rutger Hauer. You may know him from such things as rutgerhauer.org, a website brought to you this week by Rutger Hauer.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Steve. We're ruining your gag.
Rutgerhauer.org, you may be interested to know, has had 6,918,334 visitors since October 29, 1999.
Wow.
And I'm not sure what would be on the landing page because it requires the Flash player, and I don't have that anymore.
Well, give me that URL again.
It's rutgerhauer.org.
let me fill you in on what we got going here. Wow, there's a beautiful picture of Rutger.
It's the side panel of Rutger Hauer's eye, and then two different close-ups of Rutger Hauer.
Okay, so there's a globe. There's a globe that's spinning really fast while I'm getting a loading bar.
Okay.
And now it's a black screen. It just says, I just right clicked and it says movie not loaded. So
the thing that makes this more bizarre is that if you click on rutgerhauer.org's site updates, it's updated like every 3 days.
Wow.
The last update, September 12th, 2017.
Right.
It's
someone is so like there is a someone or someones who are dedicated to keeping Rutger Hauer's official website up and running.
It's a long-term contract.
And if you're listening, something's gone wrong with that that opening video.
Player,
also, upload it to YouTube. Come on, get with it. Get with the times. That was part of my cursory Googling. The rest of my cursory Googling revealed that Rutger Hauer is, according to IMDb, a blonde, blue-eyed, tall, handsome Dutch actor. He's played...
That is the actual description. Yeah. That's not you describing a photo.
That's what it says. He's played everything from romantic leads to action heroes to sinister villains. You may know Rutger Hauer from Blade Runner, which will be important later, Batman Begins, Sin City, and The Hitcher, where he is John Ryder, which is an amazing name.
It's a very good movie.
Excellent.
The Hitcher is a wonderful little horror film.
So yes, it is Rutger Hauer, and it is the Rutger Hauer.
Did you say Split Second?
No, I didn't. But
I'm just going to do a call out for Split Second.
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. While we're on that, I would like to do a call out for the Scorpion King 4 Quest for Power.
Okay. Good. Thanks for listening to the Rutger Hauer Fan Cast. So anyway,
what does Rutger Hauer have to do with this video game, Steve?
That's an excellent question. Yeah. Rutger Hauer voices the main character, and as I find out not too long into the game, also provides his likeness. Well, young Rutger Hauer's likeness.
Right.
For the main character.
Okay.
So the vibe we get from this game when we open up is we're getting this mashup kind of new tech and old tech all at the same time. So I appear to start the game sort of fades in from black, and I appear to be first person sitting in the driver's seat of a cab or a police car. I'm not really sure yet, but there's a lot of equipment around. And there are what looks like LCD readouts and old green phosphor CRTs in the dash, things like that. But they don't look like it's from one particular period of time. Like it's a bunch of different period of tech dragged forward. So it doesn't seem like it's our present future. It's Blade Runner, right? Like,
right.
Which explains maybe
it's kind of like that neo-futuristic aesthetic that was conceived of in the 80s, which is just like, let's update what we already have, just make it more bright and colorful and hologrammy.
Yeah. So there's a lot of screens that some of which seem like they're modern LCDs, some of which seem like they're old CRTs. There's a lot of neon, but everything else is very drab. It's raining outside. And the character's vision itself has video artifacts in it. So when you move the camera, I have camera control at this point, like I can move my head around within the limits of what the head would move. And when you move it quickly, you see fake video artifacts creep in, like it pixelates, like the video encoding isn't quite doing what you want it to.
Okay.
So I'm assuming my eyes aren't real eyes. I have orgs. Which is backed up later, I think. So it's kind of like
computer joke.
So we've got a cyberpunk kind of setting. We're also getting from some things that happened not too long into the game that it's kind of the term is grinder, but it's biohacking. So like there are augments in the character's body that look makeshift. They don't look polished. They don't look like final tech. But we'll come to that in a minute. So things look like they should be from that scene in Blade Runner where he doesn't have an umbrella and he's walking through an alley. Like it looks like there's a cab somewhere in that scene in Blade Runner that Rutger Hauer was just sitting in, having a chat.
Okay.
But everything is far more blue and green. So whereas I recall, there's a far more like pinks and purples in Blade Runner. In this game,
and
things are
quite
blue
a few
and they're green.
warm tones in there as well, if I recall. So
so there are neon signs that are on buildings that are advertising things. But sort of the general color palette is it's dark and it's blue and green on like a steel, like dirty steel.
Right.
So yeah, I'm stuck in my seat. I can look around, and there's a lady talking to me through what appears to be like a dash voice chat, like a video conferencing software in the dash of my computer, or like the car that I'm in. And she's talking to me, and Rutger responds without me having to prompt So the voice tells me that I haven't been responding for the last 5 minutes. That my character, who I'm just going to call Rutger, that's not his real name.
I think your name's Daniel.
My name's
Daniel
Daniel
Lazarski.
Yeah, that's my name, but Rutger will do.
Okay.
So we're somewhere in the future. He's been out for 5 minutes. It seems like he's just woken up. I get given some simple dialogue options at a certain point. When the person talking to me through the TV says, "Have I taken my meds?" And I have options now appearing to me that show up. So there's 3 lines of text, slightly to the right of screen, sort of just taking up dead center. They're in UI space. They're not in world. And these are the options for what I could do to talk about. And so the options I get are not yet sure and don't worry about it.
Which is those are some weird options to be given.
Yeah, I mean, I think this early on it wants me to get a sense of the range of sort of interactions my character might be having with. This seems like the setup I'm assuming is this is the person who's going to give me my mission, that they're the person who is at HQ who's telling me what I have to do. And so these are the range of things I might tell them, depending on how Rutger is feeling. But I don't have a good sense of that yet.
Yeah, but it's
what are those three things? What do those 3 things tell you about what the character's feeling?
So
quite short, sort of cursory phrases.
Yeah. So for me, not yet was just like the honest answer. Just like, oh, yep, good call. Haven't. Right. Why do you kind of like sort of a little bit of why do you care?
Okay.
Sure, just being a flat out liar, like none of your business kind of thing.
Right.
Just give me my mission. You don't tell me what to do, and don't worry about it being I want you to know I haven't taken it and that you don't own me.
Okay.
But the issue with this is that it's not. When being given dialogue options, it's important that you have some sort of clear sense as to how you're actually going to phrase this. Like the odds that Rutger is going to reply with just not yet when you select not yet is very minimal. So the choice of phrasing needs to be very precise in order to give you a clear indication of what you're actually saying, so that you say not yet and Rutger's something like, oh, I'm really, really sorry, like I forgot to do that, or let me do that right now. Yeah. Like that would be.
Well, this is what I'm wondering. Is this a Mass Effect situation where you've got brevity in the written dialogue options because you can't fit the entirety of what's going to be spoken on the screen?
In all the cases where this pops up, Rutger says a line that is longer and usually more elaborate than what I'm offered.
Right. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, but let's not forget that Telltale games do this as well. But the selection of words are very particular to mitigate the chances of you making a selection that is not indicative of what you are actually trying to emotionally impart.
Right, okay. Yes.
Yeah, there's very little room for ambiguity in what we would get in a Telltale game, or a recent Telltale game. Yeah. Right? Like you would see 3 options and you wouldn't be like, oh, I did not think that's how that was going to be said.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas here, there's perhaps room for you to be, I'm not sure which of these is going to actually do what I want.
Yeah.
So I've interacted with this radio by clicking on it with the left mouse button, and it tells me to do that. I have this dialogue interaction. I believe I chose to say not yet. So the radio lady tells me that I need to, and so the controls are not what I expected here. So I've only used a mouse so far. I've looked around the cab.
Yep.
And I've left mouse clicked on a thing to start a dialogue. It's like pressing a radio button to like answer a call. But then to choose these dialogue options, it's not on the mouse. If it was, I couldn't tell how to do it. And WAS didn't appear to do it either. The arrow keys moved my selection around. But as I recall, then enter wasn't confirmed. It was space. And it's like all these things are learnable. Like it took me...
Yeah.
If you watch the video back, you might not even notice that I was going, oh God, which key is it? Because I only stall for a couple of seconds. And once I know that, it's probably fine. But it was just it struck me as odd that it had taught me to use the mouse and left mouse button. And then that wasn't immediately obvious to me that was the way that I would select dialogue as well.
Right, okay.
I don't have a sense in this 10 minutes if that's because later on I will need to be able to look around and choose dialogue at the same time. Like, is this is it a technical thing? Is it like, well, later on you're going to do this, so we're going to reuse the same code path forever, so later on you want to do that, so you have to do it now. I don't know. I can see that being a thing this will do, because it turns out this game is kind of a detective game, I think is where it's going. So it makes sense that you need to have a phone conversation with someone while searching for clues. Something like that.
Just like Batman.
Just like Batman, yep. Except in Batman, you don't make dialogue choices. Because if you did, you would just choose Batman.
Yes. Unless you're playing Telltale's Batman.
Yeah. I was going to say, is there just a playthrough of Telltale's Batman where you just say Batman all the time?
If there... Oh, I wish there was. I wish that there was a secret fifth option. Yeah.
Yeah, that's either Batman or I'm Batman.
Yeah. That's grayed out when you're not talking to Alfred as Bruce Wayne.
Yes.
And if you press it, you just get the inner monologue of like, I can't tell them I'm Batman.
Like Bruce Wayne's talking to Vicky Vale and you're just trying to... It's just like, I wish I could tell Vicky that I'm Batman, but I can't tell Vicky that I'm Batman.
Vicky's not ready to hear this.
She's not prepared to know that I'm Batman.
Yeah. Anyway.
Can I ask a question about the meds question?
Yeah, hit me.
Did you get any indication or was anything overtly told to you about whether these meds were, you need these for your augmentations to get superpowers, or was this, there is something medically wrong with you and you need to take your medicine so things don't go wrong?
Right, so that to me is unclear even after I rewatched my footage and looked at the intro video. So the intro video sets up the world. You can watch the 10 minutes to find out. But the synopsis that I gathered from it that was important was the world's in a real bad place. The thing that runs everything now is a corporation that also runs the orgs. So like a Deus Ex Human Revolution situation.
Okay.
Cyberpunk. And so I'm not yet sure if these meds that I choose to take are because Rutger has bad blood pressure, or if this is you need to take your injection.
Few situation kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
I think the opening text crawl indicates that there was some sort of virus that specifically targeted your cybernetic augmentations that people were utilizing. So the medication that you're taking is potentially delaying the effects of that virus. The idea that it's persistent. Yeah, that's what I was gathering from it. Because there's a line from Rutger as well where he indicates that it still hasn't gotten him yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, not super clear, and that a different thing will happen later. So it tells me this. The lady tells me I should take them now, and my tutorial text pops up, and it says to press middle mouse button to open up my whatever it calls it. It's basically my PDA. But I was gobsmacked when it said press middle mouse button.
Because you were playing on a Macintosh?
Yeah, no, but that would be a fun one. So I don't know how smart this game is. I'm playing it at home when I was playing it, and I have a fancy gaming mouse that has too many buttons, right? So maybe it knows that, and it's like, it's cool, they have a middle mouse button. But if I was playing this at work, I don't have a middle mouse button.
You play games at work?
No, I don't. But if I was using my trackball, I don't have a middle mouse button. It just struck me
You don't play games at work? You're a games educator, Steve.
I wouldn't be playing this one at work right now. It just struck me as super weird to be telling me to use middle mouse button right now when I've already had to use the keyboard for dialogue choices. And I, M, P, or any of these keys could be open your inventory, look at your PDA.
Steve, does this feel like the equivalent of press the options button on a PS4 controller to open up the menu kajigga?
Yes, and I know this game is out on consoles, so maybe that mapping makes more sense there than it does here. The other thing I thought of after playing it, after it felt weird, because what happens when I press middle mouse button is Rutger sort of lifts his hand up in front of him and brings it sideways in front of his chest, so he can, like he's looking at a watch.
Okay.
And it does this slowly and very elegantly so that I can get a good look at the fact that Rutger has like an Arduino duct taped to his arm with wires going into his hand with flashy lights on them, and the underside of his hand doesn't appear to be a palm. Like there are exposed like pistons and actuators that are connecting parts of his hands to parts of his wrist.
Like a Terminator.
Yeah, sure. Or Luke Skywalker. And so what we get when he looks at this watch after we get to see that he has cool grinder hands is it flashes and it looks like it's projecting a hologram that he's looking at in front of him. And I get a readout. And it tells me that I am Daniel Lazarski. I get young Rutger Hauer modeled in 3D looking at me with it in full detective garb, right? Like straight out of a noir movie. He has the tie that's not quite done up properly, that's black. He has the popped collar on his trench coat.
On the trench coat.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so under that, I have a breakout section that has synchronization, which has a red squiggly line, like a sine wave readout, and a yellow squiggly line on top of it, and they do not match. So synchronization, not great. There's a panel that's called analysis with text in it that I can't read. And next to that is a giant pill button. So this icon of this pill is like the same size as Rutger Hauer's head in this UI panel that I can see.
Right.
And there's a green bar next to it that's 3/4 full. So I moved my mouse around, and when I hovered over the pill, what looked like an icon, it reacted like with a hover state, so I assume it's a button. So I clicked it, and when I do click on it, Rutger like gasps. He goes, and his vision blurs, and his hand shakes in front of him, and the heartbeat sound kicks in. And he puts his arm back down, and the UI fades away. So
no wonder he didn't like taking.
So he doesn't like taking the meds. Yeah. So for me, I'm getting like a very Heavy Rain vibe right now.
Sure.
Yeah, that might not.
Were there tears in the Heavy Rain?
I mean, I hope so.
Wonderful, excellent tying together of references.
So Rutger,
yes,
after taking...
pardon me if I say strange things this evening. I'm going a little bit batty.
Yeah.
Huh?
Come on.
When will it end?
Come on now. That's a city of sin that you're existing in right now, Tony.
Oh God. So Rutger talks to the presumably dispatch lady again and says, well, I get another dialogue option. I get any work for me, or I don't need a babysitter.
I don't know what either of those mean.
Yeah. I went with any work for me, which turns out to be Rutger politely going, so did you call for a reason? Or like it's more eloquent than that, but that's the thanks for checking in. Was this just a social call, or do you have something that you need me to do? Do you need me downtown? The dispatch lady says, no, not really. There's no one to interrogate. And Rutger says, that sounds bad. And she says, yep, there was an explosion. There's nothing left. It leveled half the block. It's still on fire. There are corporate goons all over the place. And then in the subtitles, it has sarcasm quotes around securing the area. So that's our intro that we get. So I'm assuming now that I'm going somewhere to go do a case. I'm assuming that I'm a cop of some kind. I mean, like, I know I'm an observer from the intro text, but it wasn't made clear to me what observers did. Like, were they just psychics? It seems like they're part of law enforcement.
Okay.
Or
sort of made it indicative that there are augmented individuals hanging around who aren't necessarily abiding by the corporation's rules, and you're the one who sort of steps in and digitally gives them the willies.
That, and it also implies that, well, yeah,
like, no shit, Tony. Like, that's what the opening crawl kind of indicates. It's like, I live in your fear and your dreams.
Right. Okay.
I'm an observer.
So, Aaron, I take it you've watched Steve's playthrough, have you?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm coming at this from a position of complete ignorance because I haven't seen any of this.
That's
but what I'm thinking about, based on what both of you are saying, is this dispatcher your sort of one-to-one handler?
Yep.
Or are they, somebody back at HQ who's coordinating multiple people? Like, what? How,
I'm unclear.
How closely are you working with this person?
Yeah, I don't have a good sense of that. The read that I get from it is more of the latter, because they're not like, good to hear from you again, Jane.
Right. Okay.
How are the kids?
Yeah.
Like, they're not.
Right. Yeah.
They're not having that level of like humdrum discussion. Like, they're very familiar, but it's still, have you done this? Where are you? Why didn't you respond? You're needed here. They're at it again. Get to it. I got other people to talk to. Kind of. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yep.
And I mean, this dispatcher's dialogue does seem to indicate that they, like you, are working for the corporation. You're not working with the corporation.
All right.
Yeah.
Like, there's a degree of animosity, of shared animosity, but yeah, beyond that, doesn't really appear that you have any sort of like close connection.
Animosity or cynicism?
Probably close to the cynicism.
Okay.
The other,
a degree of like they accept that they're in charge, that they're in control of things, but they're also,
things could be better.
They're also, things could be a lot better.
So it's one of those. These things clearly aren't ideal, but what are we going to do? This is like 4 steps up the chain that deals with this shit.
Yeah,
and like at least we got a job. At least we're employed.
Okay. Yep.
And at least we're not insane yet and don't have the weird rot virus.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once that conversation kind of gets interrupted and Rutger's car turns off, and for a second I'm not sure if Rutger is having a flashback or a flash forward or is psychic, or if it's like Ghost in a Shell and his brain's being hacked. Again, a voice comes through. I'm not going to recap all of it because it's a rather long conversation. But I'm still in the cab, but the lights are out. Like, the cab is powered off. It turns out that it's his son, who Rutger thought was dead. Not dead. Talking to you. Presumably not dead. There's an ominous drone in the background. So this is the spooky stuff. To let me know it's spooky. And there are some of the lines that I think are key here is this son's voice going, I thought I could do it. I thought I could set us all free. And Rutger kind of doesn't pick up on that, doesn't comment on it directly. But we get the sense then that his son is trying to overthrow a corporation, get rid of the orgs or something of that nature is what I'm assuming. They have some more back and forth. And it seems like the son's voice needs to go or has to go, and he's wrapping up the conversation. And he says, remember one more thing. Remember, you're not in control. And then the cab turns back on, and Rutger doesn't seem super fazed by this. And this also sort of lets us know that the dispatch lady had other shit to do, because she wasn't like, what are you doing? Who are you talking to? Like, she's gone now. Okay. And Rutger starts talking to his digital assistant. So his OK Google or his like Siri. Sorry, that totally just turned on my OK Google. Sorry. And so this I really liked. I thought this was a good touch. In this universe, the corporation's sort of digital assistant is called Matriarch. So he says, Matriarch, display caller ID for that last call, which it brings up, and it gives him an address, and it's a name. It's Gorbinski, Leon Gorbinski, I think.
Right.
So apparently that thing was a phone call, not a weird psychic brain hack flashback. It's just they have weird phones in the future that turn your car off sometimes. And so then he says, okay,
it must be the Neo future version of FaceTime.
Maybe closes all other apps.
Yeah.
So he gets a caller ID of it, and then he asks Matriarch to find the location of the call, which it then does. It says triangulating and tells him where it is. Rutger then has a little talk,
and we have successfully navigated around another Ridley Scott reference.
Yeah. We get some more Rutger lines where he seems disheartened and saddened with what has happened to presumably his son. He says, "I guess you had to hit bottom, did you? Rock fucking bottom." And then we get a cutscene, a pre-rendered cutscene that we'll talk about a little bit. The other thing that I got from this dialogue interaction with Rutger and the dispatcher is that he's kind of superfluous. Some of the lines in there come across as like, no, I don't need anything from you, really. There's nothing really for you to do. There's no one left. Everyone's dead. And that's just how it is now. You know, like a building blows up and that's fine. You know, that's a Monday. So kind of hammering home the post-apocalyptic cyberpunk dystopian nightmare future that they live in.
Okay.
Any questions for our intro? Because this 10 minutes very neatly is cut into this section, this pre-rendered bit, and then walking simulator.
I got nothing.
Cool.
No,
so this,
not off the top of my head.
That's all good. Yep. I just wanted to check. So the next bit is a mood piece that I've heard others describe as like a combination between a Tool and a Nine Inch Nails video clip.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
Yes, or the opening credits to David Fincher's Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Sure.
Which was scored by Nine Inch Nails, effectively.
Yeah.
Yes, so quite appropriate. Yes, appropriately connected.
And so this is pre-rendered, not in-engine cutscene, and it's a bunch of like, there's tentacles, there's blood, gore. It's also close-ups of things that look like they might be surgical machinery. It's essentially Grindr hackerspace gone wrong, right? At some point, there's
I think so. The first image is kind of like a half-eaten rotten apple with a bunch of cables coming in and out of it, which is sort of communicating that organic mixing with the mechanical, all that sort of stuff.
Okay,
and it not working,
and it not going great,
rotting away.
Yeah.
Here's me barking some questions because I haven't watched a video. Yep. Was this Cronenberg?
Kind of.
Not as wet.
There's not a lot of pussy, fleshy stuff. There's a little bit of blood, but it's not like things exploding in.
And scaling all the way to the other end of the spectrum. Is this Paul W.S. Anderson's Event Horizon?
Again, it's still surprising.
Not as wet.
Not as gory as that. And less angular. Like, everything is round. Everything is round cables. Whereas, as I recall, a lot of Event Horizon is sharp angles. Right? Things are pulled apart on hooks. There's a lot of the imagery in Event Horizon.
Can I do a super deep pull to a really obscure thing that maybe nobody's heard of then?
I mean, if you'll allow me to Google it while you do it, sure.
Sure. There's a movie called The Matrix.
I mean, kind of.
Sorry.
Like, the Matrix is too pretty, right? Like, The Matrix has a lot of this stuff of, like, there's mechanical tentacly things, there are body ports, but they're all very neat and clean.
Okay.
And, like, in The Matrix, they're in that goo, and otherwise they're just people. This looks like the first attempt of the robots to hook people up to a battery, not once they had perfected it. Right,
and it's consistently mixing mechanical with biological. So there's another one of the images is a cable that's sort of like snaking through a bunch of other cables. Like it's moving, it has life amongst cables and leaves and that sort of stuff. Yeah. like a centipede or a snake.
Right.
It's almost like if for the next iPhone, Apple was like, let's bring Reznor on board and see what he's got for us. It's clean and corporate, but it has this very yucky aspect to it.
Okay.
So there's some of the things in there are like there's a couple of decaying flesh things. There's a couple of things that look like they're probably images of what this disease that they described earlier are. And it sort of ends with what looks like a brain or maybe even intestines with like a bunch of electrodes in it.
Okay.
So yeah, we get that. I get a sense of what I'm getting myself into. It's a cyberpunk hostel. So after the cutscene, we get an observer title card again, I think. And then we get told that we are in Krakow, which is Krakow. And we are now in a hallway, presumably at the location that Rutger found. And it's a walking simulator. So I have first person, I have camera look, Waz walks me around, but this hallway looks unlike any hallway you have ever seen in your life. So, other than the normal video game stuff of way too many exposed cables, it looks like, I'm not sure if this is meant to be in-world or whether it's meant to be your augments, but every surface is covered in these like teal glowing panels. So it looks like there are screens either over all the surfaces or you have magic eyes that are overlaying this information on the walls. And so that's allowing me to pick up the lines of the walls. It's picking out panels on the floor. Most of our listeners are probably thinking it looks like Deus Ex. It's so many more things on screen than that. Like Deus Ex uses its AR fake overlay stuff to actually tell you useful game stuff. This is like someone has put an ad blocker on a nightmare future where every surface would have 20 billboards on it. And instead they're all just grayed out.
Cool.
The other thing is all these things are moving and swimming around. So they all look like they're on a small sine wave. So all of these flat surfaces, the floor, the walls, the roof, they have these glowing AR panels that are just rotating and moving around a little bit. But also the metallic panels underneath them. Looks like the walls and the floor are made out of like overlapping pieces of metal. They're also doing that. So nothing is still. This entire room is like slowly gyrating, like as if it's alive, or like it's some sort of artificially constructed space that could reshape at any moment. And I don't have a good sense whether that's what's actually happening, or whether that's Rutger imagining it, or whether that's the AR overlay changing it.
Yeah, it's very disorienting.
Yeah. In the 10 minutes, I think I just looked at a wall because I wasn't sure what was happening because everything was moving, and I just stared at a wall and like, oh god, all these things are just moving around a bit. It's very, very off-putting. But on a lighter note, there's totally a sweeper bot in this hallway that I went and messed with. So there's a robot that looks...
Which doesn't have the blue overlay.
No.
Which is probably worth mentioning.
Yeah, it doesn't have an overlay over it. And neither does the door that's at the far end of this hallway. It's just a set of wooden doors. There's no AR overlap on it.
Right.
Which is part of why I'm not sure this is the character's eyes or if this world is just made out of screens with no information on them. But so this robot that is sweeping the floor in the one spot forever looks like it belongs in Futurama. Like, literally, it looks like it should be a Futurama robot from the island of outdated technology or whatever. I can't remember what it was called. Like, it looks like it should be one of those, right? It has weird arms bolted on the sides that don't look like they have a very good range of motion. And it's kind of just sweeping backwards and forwards in the same spot. Looks like a slight breeze would knock it over. This doesn't look like it's a high-tech piece of machinery. So I went and messed with it, and it kind of looks up at me with like a security camera eye. I'm actually much taller than it is. And it sort of just goes back to sweeping. Further down this hallway on the other side, opposite where this robot is, so this robot is placed to draw my attention because immediately opposite it, on the other side of the hallway, there is like a kiosk. There's a person there that sort of shouts at me and asks me what I'm doing there. So I walk up to them and I talk to them. They ask me some questions and they don't seem like they're all there, both visually and the way that they speak. So that this character speaks in very broken, short sentences. And so the subtitles will actually have like 3 words, ... an unrelated phrase that's only 2 words long, ... And so the character themselves looks like they're half synthetic and half human. So their entire right side looks like they are a robot with very, very cheap silicon or like latex draped over it and stapled to the other side of their flesh. With like a weird glowing blue eye.
Weird folds happening around where the elbow would be.
Yeah. It looks like they've been like this for a while, and that previously that giant gnarled up rolls of latex around their elbow would have been stapled on their wrist, but through use it's sort of snapped off and rolled up. And you can see a Luke Skywalker style arm underneath it. Rooker doesn't seem too impressed by this person. My character basically manipulates them. They ask, "Tenant?" He's like, "Are you a tenant? You're not allowed to be here." And I'm offered, do I give him my name, which is Lozansky, or Gorbinski?
Lazarski, I think.
Lazarski, yeah, Lazarski or Gorbinski.
Yeah.
The name, Grabinski, the name of the caller ID. I say Grabinski because it seems like Rutger wants to just manipulate this person to leave them alone, because they're kind of like, you're not allowed to be here. Right. And Rutger also, I assume this is meant to be an insult, calls him Tin Man. I don't know if that's like slang in this universe for someone who has parts of their body replaced, or whether it's meant to be a reference to Wizard of Oz. Because he's talking...
It seems the delivery of it makes it seem like a pejorative term.
Yeah. I was uncertain whether it was trying to call attention to the way he's speaking. It was like, oil can. Because he's just using very, very short, stunted sentences. Okay. Yeah. This looks run down. It looks like this is a human/robot that is in charge of just being the receptionist in this apartment complex. So essentially, I'm guessing they're the custodian. They look like they have tools and stuff behind them that I'm guessing they would go and fix things with. He tells them where to go.
Can I ask a really peculiar design question?
Yeah.
And I mean this in terms of the in-world fiction. When it comes to design, whomever is constructing these robots, do they give any shits about them being able to pass as human?
No. This looks like someone stapled a balloon to the side of your face.
Okay.
Like, the skin color doesn't match. The folds don't line up.
In this particular example that you're talking about, yes. But, I mean, in general...
so far,
this is because I've got Blade Runner stuck in my head, where the entire point is that replicants are not easily distinguishable from people. Okay.
Yeah, this is not that. Right. They are very obviously augmented with technology. Like Rutger's arm, I'm not kidding, it looks like he has an Arduino board literally duct taped to his hand.
Yeah.
Which is what his PDA is that gives him his readout. Like the technology I've seen so far that is wetware is not trying to hide itself. Whether that's because this universe isn't technologically far enough along to hide it, or whether they simply don't give a shit. They're like, why would we bother hiding it?
So, here are some electrodes and wires and circuit boards stuck into a piece of meat, rather than here is some flesh wrapped around a rather spiffy robot.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So it tells me where to go, which is to the big door that I saw earlier at the end that has no AR over it, which kind of makes it stand out because it's not glowing teal. Nice. Because it's drab, whereas everything else is trying to grab my attention, which is interesting. Like that inverse of what we would normally expect of like, we'll make it shiny. It's like here it needs to not be shiny, and then it stands out. So the doors work the same way as they do in Amnesia, which is you left mouse click on the very, very small target area, kind of like to raycast hit it.
Yeah.
But then once you're kind of like locked on, moving the mouse physically opens and closes the door like in an analog fashion.
Which works in Amnesia for slowly opening the door in case there's a monster on the other side.
So I'm assuming that that's going to happen later. Like this game, up until I had the weird body horror grinder, dying flowers, decaying flesh stuff, I wasn't sure whether it was just going to be a cyberpunk detective thing. But now it's very much like, no, there's going to be some shit, right?
Right.
So I'm assuming that this Amnesia door control means that at some point I will want to be able to slowly open a door versus fastly open a door versus peek through a door, and that sort of stuff. I always really love the way that feels, that manual door control. Just that one-to-one mimicking, I'm moving my hand backwards and forwards and the world is doing the same thing, always feels great.
It's good embodiment.
Yeah. Which I think might be why it wanted me to use middle mouse button to look at my watch.
Sure.
But, so there are lots of doors that are then locked through here. So when there's a locked door, it still has a little square of like grab here to interact. But when you do, it flashes a red X on you saying, no, you can't interact with this door. I know what door I'm after. I'm after apartment 7. But there are doors on the way, so of course I'm going to try and open them. Eventually, I get into a small courtyard area, so I sort of get at the back of this building, and now I'm going into another one. And as I walk out, there's a small musical swell, and this is the first time I get a good look at the outside world, because I'm not in a car. And it is a Blade Runner thing of very, very tall skyscrapers that are covered in billboards with ads on them, and propaganda-style imagery, like, everyone is happy, look at this customer service person smiling at you. And there's the logo of this corporation, the Cryon company, I think is the name.
Chiron,
Chiron?
It's CHIRON.
Yep. Their logo on many of these boards. So that is the corporation that runs everything now. And everything is teal, and all of these billboards are basically white. Now, the game tried to trick me.
Why would you need billboards to advertise if you're a complete monopoly?
Well, there's a marketing department. They got to do something.
Okay.
Yeah. gotta make sure that you remember who's in charge.
Okay.
Billboards are
and
up.
that everyone's happy.
Yeah.
We want to avoid an uprising.
Yeah. So as I walk outside, there is a very large crow particle system. So there are crows already flying around in the air in this courtyard, and as I walk outside, it sort of triggers it, and the
It's a
30 or so...
well-known collective noun for crows.
Yeah, a particle system of crows.
Yeah.
There are 30 or so of them on the ground that as you walk outside, sort of hop up and fly up into the sky as well. Okay. While I'm in this area, there's also a PA system that the summary of says, a warning that all Class C districts have a curfew in effect. It also then says, please return to your homes and enjoy your holographic entertainment of choice. Before I walk into this next area, a hover car flies overhead and it shakes the ground around it. And in the far end of this courtyard is the distraction that I avoided. Is the only red and the only blue and the only green on screen, one after the other, where it looks like it says, I can't read the name in this screenshot, but it's like Frederick's Tattoo Shop. It's like Frederick's is in cursive in red, tattoo is in like red in blue, and shop is in a different cursive in like pure green, right? So that's the only time those colors exist here, but I didn't fall for their trick. I kept going where I was meant to because I was on a 10-minute limit. Nice. So I walked into the next door that I approached. It was open, which is where as I recalled, I needed to go. And I get the analog door open. Still love it, especially because I walk through, grab it, and slam it behind me. I'm like, ha ha. As I'm walking through these halls, the ominous tones are starting to follow me. I don't know if they swelled as soon as I came in or not, but they're there.
A great idea for an Amnesia Let's Play, Steve.
Yep. There are many more locked doors in this area. I start noticing that they have a different color overlay on the doors when they're locked. So instead of the teal overlay that's around most things, they have a more pure green with elements of red on it. So it looks more like a straight terminal output that you'd expect in a Hollywood movie of what computers are like. Yep. Rather than the rectangles in teal everywhere else. I keep going through some hallways. There's what looks like a server just sitting in one of these corners of this hallways. I'm getting closer to the room that I need, and the actual hallway that leads to the room that I want has just been smashed out. All right, like someone's taken a sledgehammer and knocked all the bricks out to make a new hallway to connect to this other part of the building. Like maybe this building is actually part of the building next door, and they're just like, nope, ours now. And it's this bit here is a little bit weird because I can see that these moving parts that I thought were like metal building the walls, it looks like there's earth in the walls. I don't know if this is just like we didn't have time to texture it cool, or if it's trying to tell me that this slick veneer is just fancy wallpaper and it's just shitty brick houses underneath. I'm hoping it's the latter. I don't really find out in my 10 minutes, obviously. I find the room I'm after. It teaches me how to crouch with control. I move a bookcase out of my way the same way I would open a door. I approach a curtain in a room, and there's sort of a person sitting under it, and a cutscene takes over. Rutger pulls the curtain back. He sees a person sitting there with blood around them with no head. Rutger stumbles back and falls onto the ground. This is all still in first person, like Far Cry style. And Rutger starts freaking out. So the screen starts pulsing. It looks like this has turned on like a warning system in the building. The shutters start closing, and a red alarm light is spinning around in the roof, making these red bands of like black and red fly around the room. Feeling it was previously just kind of a dimly lit room. Right. Now it looks like it had like a bomb is going to go off. Yeah. And I get these readouts in like the Half-Life Hev suit style VO. It says, warning, abnormal stress levels detected. As Rutger is like on the ground going, freaking out. It then tells me heart rate irregular. It then tells me administering mild sedative. As just after that happens, Rutger automatically, without me intervening, like uses his radio. He doesn't pull anything out, but he's using a radio. He says, "This is Lazarski." He gives his badge number, but no one answers. He's trying to talk himself down. Because he thinks that this body he's found might be his son. So he's like, "It couldn't be him. It might not be him." As sort of the music fades, the red light fades away, the pulsing stops, and as that finishes, I get my HevSuit VO again, says, operational efficiency restored.
I thought you were going to say the HevSuit voiceover says, it's your son.
It is your son, though.
Yeah. Just jokes, it's your kid.
So that happened. Lazarski then says, I'm setting up a crime scene. Like he's announcing it like
Can
go ahead.
Can I ask? Sorry, until the suit voiceover said, until he started talking himself down, had it occurred to you that it might be his son?
No. Like, when I rewatched my footage, in the moment, no. I'm like, oh, someone died here. This is bad.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't thinking that.
Right.
So in one sense, I suppose it's good that Rutger was saying it, because I didn't make the connection.
But were you supposed to?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Rutger, the character certainly wants to.
Yeah.
Or is certainly concerned about it, but I'm not sure if that is the character legitimately being concerned that his previously thought to be dead son is alive and is now dead again, or whether he's just not doing too well, right? And like this was enough to give him a panic attack, or whatever it is we want to call it, right?
Well,
I'm not sure what his
at the risk of getting overly picky in a medical sense, if his heartbeat was irregular, that's a very different response than a heart rate being elevated.
Yeah, it says irregular, but I didn't take that to be a medically determined irregular heartbeat, as opposed to...
this is most irregular.
This is not the nominal heartbeat.
Sure.
Yeah, your heart isn't doing what it should be doing.
Yes, I was interpreting that not as a medically irregular, but more of a... You are outside of the standard deviation of heartbeats. Are you aware? That's more what I was taking the computer to mean. I really love this operational efficiency restored line.
Yep.
Not that this world isn't cold, calculated, brutal, and disgusting already, but the idea that Matriarch, I'm assuming is what do this, and the Arduino board that's stuck into my arm going, you're operating suboptimally. Let me just fuck with your neurochemistry.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah,
there is there is a tremendous sort of augmented human love ballad set of lyrics that we're constructing.
Yeah.
Baby, when I see you, I'm more than 3 standard deviations above the nominal heart rate.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah, exactly.
A mild sentiment is not enough for me.
Yeah, I just love that idea of like that your body's operating system is just like, you appear to be undergoing some sort of stress. Let's not have you process those feelings.
Yeah. It's reminding me of another movie that isn't Blade Runner that I can't remember. Like, there's a bunch, obviously.
There's many movies that aren't Blade Runner, Steve.
Yes, there are.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of them.
There's Blade Runner 2049. For example.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, anyway. It's not Super Soldier, but Super Soldier would be an apt mention. Anyway.
Are you thinking of Equilibrium?
No, like, yes, but no. It's like a Starship Troopers style movie where they do a thing with their soldiers, but it's not Super Soldier.
Universal Soldier.
It wasn't that one, but that's good enough. We can go with that.
Was it Stargate, Steve?
Maybe, whatever. Anyway, that's what it reminded me of.
Star Trek.
It was Stargate Wars.
Was it Enemy Mine? Was it Enemy Mine?
Maybe. So,
was it Enemy of the State?
Enemy at the Gates. There we go. That's it.
Enemy of the Gates. That was it.
Solved it.
Was it The English Patient?
Yeah. It's that weird deleted scene.
Was it The Mists of Avalon?
Yeah, the weird deleted scene from The Pianist. Anyway, so Lazarski seems to be following procedure, so he's talking to himself.
Was it Bad Lieutenant?
No. He's talking to himself, presumably, like, everything is being recorded, I would imagine, so it seems like he's now, okay, I'm following procedure. So he says, This is Lazarski, gives his badge number, says, setting up a crime scene. And then I get a little bit of tutorial that says to turn on my overlay. So at this point, I'm looking for electromagnetic something or other overlay. So I hit this button, my vision sort of warps, and now I have like a night vision effect on my eyes. Everything's very washed out. The colors are very crushed. The contrast has been
smushed to buggery. It's basically grayscale with a bit of green highlighting around the edges. And as I do that, so like a pulse radiates out from the player character, indicating that it's doing some sort of area scan, not just that this is a vision filter. It's an active thing that I'm telling my senses or my augments or whatever to do.
Right.
And I get additional readouts on screen now. So I have little HUD points, and I have my synchronization meter in the bottom corner. And it's telling me that I need to check the victim's compass for connections. Compass is a capital noun, compass.
Right, yep.
And that is about 10 minutes.
Okay.
So the big thing for me, other than the bits we've already talked about, which we've kind of dived in and as we've gone, which is fine.
Yeah.
Is that this game oozes style. Like it has style for days. It's very consistently delivered to me. Like nothing feels like it breaks it. Even the bits where it looks like there's mismatched technology together, like they fit with its world. Like we're unknown how far in the future, so you probably could do better than this weird exposed Arduino board, but you don't need to because you're one corporation that runs the world. Why would you bother making it better? Like you don't have competition, you don't need to compete on aesthetics or cost or whatever. Just do it. It works. Who cares? We have evil to do. Right? So yeah,
we have corporations to corporate.
Yeah, we got to be busy corporating.
So here's
go ahead.
Here's something that is contrary to my expectations, based around the extremely limited body of knowledge I had prior to this conversation.
Yep.
When you say you are a detective and it's noir as fuck,
seems it, yes.
That to me implies I have a tiny, shitty little cubicle office in a dusty building somewhere, and I'm operating kind of solo, and I have a bunch of semi-shady underworld connections.
Yep.
And clearly that's not the case here because you are an employee of a corporation. And that juxtaposition, that apparent mismatch, I find really interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite sure how that's coming across in this introduction. Like, do you feel like a corporate stooge, or do you feel like you're operating slightly to the side of the set of rules that other employees have to follow?
The vibe that I get is so entangled in Blade Runner that it's really hard for me to tell if the game is telling me this, or it's so apes. That's not even the right word. It so heavily brings all of Blade Runner to the front of my brain,
right?
That is filling in all these gaps. Like I'm assuming that I am the equivalent of Decker, right? That like I work for the corporation, but I'm a dying breed. I'm not necessary as much as I used to be anymore because the problems don't occur anymore. It's like I am an observer. There are not many observers, I'm assuming, and they call me in when things are not going to plan because I assume I hack brains is what I do from the description that was given in the intro text.
Can we get a little bit philosophical here then?
Yeah, go for it.
I want to dive into this title, Observer. Are you meant to intervene? Are you meant to prevent? Are you meant to act, or are you meant to witness?
I certainly do not.
Is there some Heisenberg at play here as well?
There certainly could be. I certainly get the impression that I am not a cop on the beat.
Yeah.
My role is to come in when they don't know what happened.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of which of the many gimmick crime shows this is like. I'm like the Mentalist.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like Hannibal, right?
Yeah,
a well-known policing show.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first season of that was a total crime procedural.
Yeah.
Like, that was a total crime of the week show. And that's what it was about. Was Will Graham using his powers of empathy to mentally recreate a crime scene, hop into the mind of the serial killer and find out what it was that they did.
Yeah. And that seems like what I'm going to do here. Not necessarily for serial killers, but it seems like it will be... The things from the intro text are the only things I have to really go on here, other than it being a detective game. But those bits in the intro text imply that I can find things out that people either can't tell me or won't tell me.
Okay, and is this with the objective of being able to do something about it before things get really bad, or is this no? It's already been fucked. Now we just need to piece together what occurred.
I don't have a clear sense of which of those it is, but I feel like the way this world is heading, Lazarski's job is not to fix things. Lazarski's job is to get data.
Okay.
Somebody else might need to fix things. Like it might just be purely...
Kind of the vibe that I was getting from this was along those lines. So flipping this now into kind of more video game kind of topics. Mm-hmm. Can you die in this game?
I don't know yet, but I'm imagining that yes, I can because it's a horror game. It has survival horror in genres.
Purely based around the survival horror vibe, you're assuming that death is a thing that can happen.
Yes. Right, I don't know where or how that will come. My first guess, and from the setup that I have here, is that I will continue trying to observe, and I will end up accidentally observing things in the act. Right, like I will chase something down, and it won't be as cold a lead as I thought it was, and somebody there will be like, "Well, you die now," and I will need to get out of there. But sure. I don't know that. That's a total guess. I haven't played more than my 10 minutes. While you're perhaps stewing on any more things you want to bring up, a thing that I haven't mentioned that should be mentioned is this is a very, very pretty game. Mm-hmm. It is an Unreal Engine 4 game for sure. It has all of the lighting. It has all of the effects. The detail in the scenes is very, very rich. Some of that is due to these moving effects that are on the walls that add a lot of detail that otherwise would just be a flat surface. So they get a lot for little there, which is really cool. But the number of greebles and clutter that are all over the place, the number of unique elements is crazy. And the quality bar for all these things is super high.
I particularly like the texturing detail on the cleaning robot. The graffiti tag that you could see that had been placed on it really added to the overall sense of grime and corruption in the area that you were in.
Yeah.
Not to say that graffiti art necessarily is synonymous with grime and that sort of stuff, but when we're dealing with neo-noir, it certainly is.
Yeah, and on a cleaning robot is also a nice touch.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly.
Unless I'm misremembering... Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. No, I was going to see if anyone had any other thoughts, so go for it.
Unless I'm misremembering what you said, I'm going to mispronunciate this horribly, but you said this game was set in Krakow?
Krakow, yeah. Krakow.
Yep, so it's a city in Poland. As I understand it, this is also where the developers are from?
Yes, it even gave me GPS coordinates before that city name.
And I just wanted to make a comment that I think I always appreciate it when people set a thing set on Earth in a space that's familiar to them. I think that can add a level of authenticity is the wrong word, but I can't think of a better one.
I mean, it's groundedness, right? Like,
It's sincerity as well.
It can allow you to tap into small details. It kind of automatically infuses things with small details that would otherwise be very difficult to accomplish.
Yeah, it's that stuff of it's that element of, well, we had to build the 10,000 years of lore for our world so that we would know what kind of graffiti would be here from 10 years ago, from when our game is set. Whereas you just go, well, it's set in this city. I can just go there and use Earth lore to fill in all my details.
And the other thing that I'd like about that, thinking about this from a production standpoint, and particularly from an environment art standpoint, if I were doing something like this and setting it in a place that I was familiar with, I would be finding the coolest parts of town or weird little obscure spaces that you've found in the city that you're like, I would really fucking love to use this in a game somewhere, and then just going there and just taking a fuckload of photos, doing a bunch of paint overs, and making some of those spaces into key locations of the game.
Yeah.
I think we all have that. We all have that dream, right? We all have that dream of creating an experience that's in a location that's familiar and loved by us. I know I certainly do.
Yes. Cool.
All right, so 10-minute check. Do I know what the game's about? Kind of. Like, I unless we're super, super wrong here, it's a detective story where things are going to go wrong.
What a weird twist on the detective genre.
I know.
I mean, I've got. If you want some assistance there, Steve, I do have a song that might be able to help you out.
Okay.
In terms of understanding what this is,
I'd love it.
I like it.
Yeah, because it turns out that Springsteen is also a big fan of cyberpunk, neo noir.
Yep, and South Krakow. We all know
horror games.
Yeah.
And Rutger. He loves Rutger. So with that in mind. Well, my name is Dan Lazarski. I'm a spooky future cop. Don't dare call me Blade Runner. The proper nouns I did swap.
Yep.
So there you go.
That's a good vibe. So I get a sense of what that is.
Anything Bruce can't do?
No, he does it all.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll find out, because I am a writer, but I've got my limits.
In terms of how to play, other than some of the default keys seeming not what I expected for what I was being asked to do, they were easy to find, and I feel like on a controller those would be even less odd to me if I was playing on a console, where that mapping of how do you operate a first-person dialogue game is not as standardized. Right? Like if you're giving me a first-person shooter and you went, you aim with left stick, I'd be like, what? But if you it's a first-person walking simulator with dialogue options, like there's not a one way to do that.
Right. Okay.
So I wouldn't have been as thrown if I was playing on a controller, I think. And I assume I'm going to detect, because the detecting has just kicked off. And now I'm going to observe. I imagine I'm going to interact and move things around, find clues that'll lead me to the next place to investigate. I'm still not super sure how the horror is going to happen. I'm assuming it will literally become, this thing will kill you unless you run away or hide or whatever else it happens to be. But up until this point...
in split second then, yep.
Yep, just like in split second. But for now, it even could just be that this is a horror game in the more pure sense of this is a horrifying reality this detective just operates in, and it would still be perfectly fine for this to be a horror game, right?
Regardless of whether or not there are any supernatural monsters, the first victim that you come across has been beheaded. That's significant. And
my suit sedates me so I can continue to operate effectively. That's pretty horrifying. Yeah.
That's very scary, yes.
So that's our 10-minute check. So I'll segue over to you, Steve. Thank you. So, if you've enjoyed this episode, you can get in contact with us and let us know about it.
Is this
Guess where we are? You're in the plugs, you didn't even know it.
Okay.
Surprise plugs. Much like I imagine the characters in Observer will at some point have. So, if you want to get in contact with us, you could email us. The email address is contact@thefirst10minutes.com. That will go to us and we can then respond to you. You can also find us in many, many social medias, in all the social medias that I'm about to list.
Steve, it's socials media.
Okay. we could go, it's social mediums. There you go.
Yep. We can do that. Or we could just call it the socials.
Just call it on the soch. So
yeah, here we are, hitting you with the fresh soch.
So our socials, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, Libsyn, Patreon, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. I think that's all of them right now. And in all of those places, if you search for the first 10 minutes or one word with the numerals, you'll find us. And you can let us know what you thought of what's happening, ask us questions, whatever. We're happy to chat. Let us know what you think.
Can I also ask, please, dear listeners, if you have been listening to this podcast and you have been enjoying it and you haven't gone to our YouTube channel and checked it out, very, very strongly recommend that you do so. We've got a bunch of Let's Plays going up there. In addition to putting these podcast episodes on YouTube and so on and so forth. And when it comes to the recommending things to a friend, that doesn't just go for this podcast recording, that also goes for the YouTube channel. And the best way that we can know that you appreciate what we're doing is by subscribing. So whether that's on iTunes or whether that's on YouTube, it's all appreciated.
As long as the numbers go up, then we know. That's how we know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please don't subscribe, unsubscribe, subscribe, unsubscribe.
Yeah,
that's not cool.
That's super confusing.
Don't do that. Yes.
We also have some newer YouTube content coming out as well. This is a new thing. The canonical run might be to your liking if you like silly things.
I like silly things.
I like silly things.
Yeah. You should check out. There's a pretty silly thing at the beginning of the canonical run that I hope you'll enjoy. Aaron.
And you're not going to explain what a canonical run is, Steve?
Nope, not for now.
Oh, you're just going to leave
That's
it
the
hanging.
beauty of the
We'll have to
canonical run.
find out.
All right, go to YouTube and find out. Yes,
You can find out. It's there. So, Aaron, how do we find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Rundown Flamingo. I'm not currently active on there, so don't be offended if I don't reply to you. However, if you want to get in touch with me via the emails, you can head to pushingb.com, where alongside getting in touch with me via email, you can read some hot essays on narrative design in the video games. I'm also on Twitter at pushingb, but once again, probably best just go to the website for now. Hey, Tony.
Yes.
I've heard that someone wants to get in touch with you on social media. How might they do that?
They're coming to get you.
Man, I really wish somebody had told me we were going to do this earlier because I'm woefully unprepared.
Yep.
Oh, no.
Just kidding. If you want to get in touch with me personally on Twitter, you can find me at Kalinskull. That's KALINSKALD. I also do a game developer interview podcast called Downloadable Context, which you can find on Twitter at DLContext or at downloadablecontext.com. Hey, Steve.
Hey.
What about you?
On them internets, you can find me on Twitter, which is _Steve Halliwell. Or you can find me via my website, stevehalliwell.com. That'll get you to all of the other places where you can find stuff that I do, like, code and stuff. It's pretty fun.
Code and stuff.
Yeah.
Lovely. So I think that does it for another episode.
Indeed it
so
does.
Thank you all very much for listening, and we'll catch you again next time.
Bye.
See
Later.
ya.